Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to a special bonus episode of 80-Bit Pod Smash. We are live on Twitch, but recording the conversation for y'all audio listeners. We are going to be walking through a review of Elden Ring while we play the game. So if you are listening on our podcast services, I would suggest just go to YouTube and try to find the video, because it's going to be a little bit more contextual than listening to us talk. But if you're here just for the audio discussion, we've built up the show in such a way that Penguin is playing while Termite is talking, and Termite
talking
is talking
minimally, ideally.
Exactly, and just
that's right. So the thoughts should be sort of more or less focused, so it should still provide a pretty decent bonus episode for the audio listeners. Although with the occasional shrieks of terror or curses of frustration from either one who is playing at the time. And, we may be responding to a question or something that a Twitch viewer has about our gameplay in the middle of that. But for the most part, it's going to be a well thought out, well structured review from each of us one at a time, and should be fun. I promise video watchers, I will get to doing some stuff here in a second once I can stop.
One last thing. We are your hosts. I am Termite.
And I'm Penguin, and we're gaming goes to grab a beer. Do you have a beer?
I do have a drink. I don't have a beer, but I have a drink.
Okay, tell me about your drink while I open mine.
Yeah, my drink is Legent Bourbon, and I actually had to finish the bottle. It had very little left. Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, partially finished in wine and sherry casks, and let me tell you what, that wine and sherry cask finish comes through. If you like bourbon, you get all of the vanilla, cinnamon, very little cinnamon, vanilla, like sugary notes that you would get from bourbon, and you get that finish with the sherry and wine barrels. So it definitely it is kind of fancy, but it's like middle to top shelf, so It's not really expensive. A lot of bang for your buck on that one. So Legent, if you see it in your ABC stores or private outlets wherever you shop, go check it out.
T-Bone says sounds fancy. Can always count on T-Bone.
That's what I responded.
Don't be shy. Be like T-Bone. If you're one of the viewers right now, be like T-Bone.
Get up in the chat.
And get all up in that chat. I am drinking. I took your advice, or the advice we came to together, and I got so I went to KOTU, Center of the Universe here in Central Virginia on my way back from work the other day, and I got this tropical lager, which is perfect because it's so springy outside, and so this is like a really fruity beer, but it's not like, I mean, I immediately smelled the fruit as soon as I opened it up, but it's actually one I think they make for King's Dominion, because it's called Tumbly, which I assume is
it's that new ride. Yeah, that's their new ride.
Yeah.
Wow,
so it says,
that's awesome.
Inspired by a mutual love of tumbling coasters and tasty local beer. Center of the Universe Brewing Company and King's Dominion proudly present Tumbly Tropical Lager, a crisp, cool, and light citrus-infused lager to keep you refreshed on even the wildest jungle expeditions. It's good. This is actually incredible. I was expecting it to be more lager with like a fruity aftertaste, but this is like pretty sweet, but not over. But the lager kind of balances out the sort of it's not overly sweet. So if you are going to King's Dominion, if you live in Central Virginia and are planning to go to King's Dominion, you should try to find this beer there. And if not, then you can meet me at KOTU and we can get one together.
Cheers.
Awesome. So cheers.
Speaking of where gaming goes to grab a beer, really quickly for the audio listeners, we are a weekly video game podcast, smashing together ideas that you care about with video games. Those episodes go live Monday at midnight every single week. You can go to 80bitpodsmash.com, landing website. That's where all of the links to all of those podcast platforms are. If you're watching us on YouTube, go check us out. If you're here on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash for our live stream, to recap really quickly, we are going to be starting to do a monthly live stream review of big games or whatever game we feel like digging and reviewing at the moment, because we're not big enough to get pre-release codes. And those episodes will be recorded and live for your podcast consumption on our feed. So go check us out. And here we go. Penguin has begun his playthrough, and we are going to go into Termite's review.
Yes, review me. Tell me all about your thoughts on this game.
So I'm going to turn your game down a little bit, because it is allowed, but I handle that. I'm an engineer at the same time I'm going to talk. So Elden Ring from Software, they came out, published by Bandai Namco. This year was a hotly anticipated game. Next in line of the From Software's Souls-like games. We know that we have like the Dark Souls lines of games, and then followed by Sekiro, and there was Bloodborne in there as a PlayStation exclusive, but Elden Ring is a platform agnostic release, and it is selling gangbusters. We had a report. We do not limit ourselves. We have a question in chat. Do you guys do only RPGs? We are not limiting ourselves to any genre.
No. We will play what we want to play, but we are not like professional streamers or anything. We are two dudes with wives and kids and full-time jobs. So we're kind of going to be streaming what we want to stream, since we're only doing it once a month. It'll be kind of like whatever we agree upon. But we'll let our people know ahead of time. If you follow us on social media and stuff, we'll try to let you guys know. And if there's any other way you'd want us to let you know, we'll try to let you know ahead of time what we're planning to stream. So
thank you, Flanker Pilot, for the question.
Absolutely.
And so you don't really get the context of what a review means in any game unless you know who the journalist who's saying or writing the content is. So I'm going to give you my perspective of where I come from as a gamer, just a tad, and then what I think about From Software and my thoughts going into Elden Ring. So as a gamer, I have been gaming for 30 plus years. I am in my mid-30s. I have a vast collection of titles that T-Bone and I, he's my brother, have collected over the years. I have a desperate, deep love for video games. I always have. Again, we have a weekly video game podcast. We stay up to date on the news. I'm very informed. I'm very much aware of what's happening. I would consider myself like the librarian between the two of us. Whereas like I can pull out history notes and publisher facts and details and like financial numbers and corporate strategies on like, not on a whim. I'm not that great. I'm no Colin Moriarty, let me tell you. But, I have that kind of mindset when it comes to, I'm very data, statistics, and administratively driven.
So does that make me the dramaturg?
You can interpret that however you would like. You can be the same, and I'm just more extreme than you. I mean, it doesn't even have to mean you're on the other end of the spectrum.
Well, no, I am the. If anyone's the dramaturg, I'm the dramaturg. I don't even know if you know what a dramaturg is, but I'm going to assume that you.
I've never heard of this word. It sounds like a Star Trek race.
We'll talk about it later. Go ahead.
Okay. So it's fine. So that's kind of in a nutshell who I am as a gamer. Very well experienced and very well knowledgeable about video games. I have never played a From Software title until Elden Ring, and this is why. As you referenced, kids, 9-to-5s, wives, family lives, right? We're super busy.
Wow,
and I get
much.
extraordinarily... Well, I didn't steal another podcast's line, but I guess since you brought it up, they say wives, lives, 9-to-5s. And it's pretty cool. But anyway, I won't...
you won't steal. You won't steal.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't steal the line you just stole.
I interpreted it my own way. So, the Blood Manor. I like this place. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I never did the quests. I found I knew that there were quests here, but I found out later that I just apparently missed the room that had the quests, and instead I just the reward for the quests is getting like a default portal to the boss, and I just like accidentally went to the boss. I was like, where are these quests? And I'm like wandering around this whole city. It turned out it was the dungeon that I was supposed to skip.
Oh, that's funny. I think I did the quest here. But anyway, so don't play From Software titles. I had T-Bone describe to me when Demon's Souls had come out on PS3 exactly what his experience was with that title, and that set the foundation for what my understanding of the entire genre would be. And then a spin-off of the Souls genre called Neo had come out, and there was a free demo on PS4 before its launch. And I believe that was Team Ninja that had made that game.
Same one who currently made the new Final Fantasy game, the new Stranger in Paradise spinoff or whatever.
They did, yeah. They also made Ninja Gaiden, which is notoriously difficult. And I played the Ninja Gaiden game from Xbox. It was like a reboot 3D instead of the NES ones. And I've played the NES ones as well, but their games are ridiculously hard. And so I played Neo, and I couldn't fight the first enemy on a beach. He's not a boss. It was just a regular old enemy. I could not beat it. 45 minutes in, I was dying over and over again.
No way.
Regular
45 minutes? You didn't tell me that. I thought you gave up after like 15 minutes, but 45 minutes.
Awful. Yeah.
Wow.
It was awful because I wanted to love the game so much. What game actually satisfied and satiated me was Ghost of Tsushima, and that came out like 10 years later. But anyway, so that was my like context to what From Software is. Now, here's Elden Ring. It's more approachable than it's ever been. It's open world. You can go anywhere. You're not trapped in a linear path. You can get stuck. You can move on to something else, power up, come back, right? Super appealing. The hype train got to me. It looks awesome. Deep lore. And so I fired it up. I got it. I was sold into it. So day one, here's Termite's thoughts. I created a character based on some internet research that the mage, the astrologer, was the kind of the most approachable build because of the range damage you can do. It helps for those getting used to the game because the tight dodging mechanics, parrying, etc. And T-Bone interrupted in chat a little bit Interrupting is a bad, no bad connotation. Please interrupt in chat. I will call you out and we'll read your question. Those Neo games are hard though. I struggled more with the first one than any of the From Software games, which is what other people have said too. But given the Demon Souls description, the Bloodborne description, I heard a review about Bloodborne where a reviewer had spent 30 minutes clearing an entire field of enemies, died at the boss afterward because weakened by enemies, and then had to re-clear that field of enemies again in a more efficient way to approach the boss stronger with more health. And that to me sounds awful, agonizing, terrible, and a waste of time. And
it's not that bad.
So,
that reviewer is just bad. I stand by that. I stand by that to this day.
And so, yeah, that's all the context going into here. So I fire up the game, I create my character. It's going to be a mage, and I start going in, and I see some enemies. There's a tutorial. When I start playing, I'm past that tutorial because I didn't want to bore anyone with that. And so there's enemies, and I could kill them. That was my first, that was it. Like first impressions. I can kill enemies. I was very happy. This was great. So I continued on, got through a bunch of enemies. There's an item that you can get in the game that will chain the first boss to the ground. And you get that item through a quest line, and I had it. So the first boss, not that bad. You can summon an NPC. I had some spirit wolves using a little bit of guides. What I love the most about Elden Ring at launch is no longer true. It was a very circumstantial situation that I regret, and I'm saddened by the fact that it will never happen. And that is the internet wasn't organized, and there wasn't a lot of intelligence about the game out there. So much that there wasn't a trophy guide, there wasn't a walkthrough. And the game doesn't hold your hand. There's no gamification of where to go on the map. There's no waypoints, no GPS, no question marks on the map. Whenever you find a site of grace, which is kind of your campfire, restore your health, respawns all the enemies, location, safe spot, and you can save your game, it will put that on the map with a little direction as to where you should go in no order, and those directions don't ever change based on anything else. So that if you look at your map, hang on, you can bring your map up real quick.
I made a load screen.
there's these little yellow trails that stay there forever. They're always in that direction. It doesn't matter if you've successfully completed everything in that direction.
Which way am I supposed to go? I still have to go this way.
You don't know,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's no hand holding in the game. The item descriptions, you have to read them in order to understand what the items do. And that was kind of my first point of frustration with this game was the lack of gamification of just your inventory. Like I didn't understand the effect that gear would have on my character, or like when I picked up a new item, I have to like spend 10 minutes, not literally 10 minutes, but like minutes, like scrolling through my inventory to find the thing, because I don't remember the name of what it was, and then like read what it does. And then what you have on the screen right now is perfect timing, because if you bring that back up, all of the things in your pouch, the gestures, and then so you have like your pouch is one thing that is linked to your down on the D-pad, and you have to scroll through that. But also you have like a left and right armament, and you can have shields and staves. So it's like a lot to take in when you're being chased and you're under pressure.
Oh, I have a
and
lightsaber.
So like I often, hey, look at that. I often like click the wrong stuff. It was a big learning curve to get to what I wanted and to kind of set it up the way that I wanted. So like I knew I was going to be using a lot of mana potions. I know I'm just going to summon my mount a lot. And so like to get that stuff and get comfortable with it. Also dash is O or circle, which is nothing like any other game, because every other game you click the left stick. And so holding O, I was
it's
clicking
the same as the dodge
stick.
button. Yeah, it's a little bit. Once you get used to it, then it's hard to go back.
It took a
like
while.
when I went to Horizon Forbidden West, I was like
dodging everywhere.
Having to dodge with a square and then also sprint with I would just keep hitting O for everything.
But when you do click the stick, like I'm used to, you duck, which is the opposite of running. So I died so many times just like accidentally ducking when I should have been trying to run away. So a lot of things to overcome. Nothing like what we're used to in most AAA or AA studios and video games now have, and not Elden Ring is probably not a AAA. It's probably a AA based on funding and the size of From Software and what they are. But most of those games have so much automation, hand-holding, extra call-outs, ease of use in the GUI. So at first, seeing the reviews go out as like 10 out of 10, perfect masterpiece, just across the board, a 97 on Metacritic, unbelievably astounding. When I logged in, I was like, the UI is clunky, obtuse, it doesn't make sense, and it took a very long time to learn. But once I learned it, it didn't get in my way anymore. So I just kind of forgot about it. You know, I'm 60 hours into the game, I got the platinum, so like that frustration or so kind of went away, probably 10 to 15 hours in, and then I got the hang of it. You know, it was fine. And then like I would get new sorcerer, like, because I was a mage, so I'd get new sorceries, and like trying to think about, there's a whole item that allows you to store more in your inventory so you can carry more spells with you. So there's a limit there. That's kind of weird. But again, they're all just like learning things. Nothing wrong with the game. It's just learning curves. And so yeah, I cleared a couple of bosses, and I just discovered that like this is nowhere near as hard as anyone made it out to be, how they described what From Software would be. Nothing was really pushing me to frustration at all. For 25 to 30, 40 hours. I don't remember what hour mark I hit.
Gosh,
the boss.
it was much longer than that. I think that that was near the end of your playthrough, so you would have probably been
I was
like
in the 50s.
45, 50 hours in before you get to the boss you're about to talk about.
Well, I'm not gonna get there yet. So
the boss
I
you'll get
loved going back to what I was talking about is the thing that will never ever be true again in the world, because the world has changed, and that is the actual real world that we live in has changed. Now there's guides, there's trophy guides, there's tons of information. Flextra Life is growing in its abundance of wealth of knowledge about this game. And so what we used to take a reach out to a friend or some random post on Reddit and the collective internet working together to figure stuff out or to call new cool things out. It goes to show you the open world, the vastness of this open world, and how everything is designed perfectly to encourage and entice exploration. And so you don't have something on the map that's telling you to go there. You just see something and you should go there.
Can I give you them an example real quick? Can I give them an example? Yeah. So like if I'm there's a bird attacking me. Hold on. Carry on. I'll get back to you in just a second here.
So yeah, you see something in the distance. You're like, oh, I wonder what's over there. Generally, you're going to find something, a hidden cave or ruins underground. That's the catacombs. That's going to take you maybe an hour to finish, or like a puzzle thing. And there's always an item or something. And a minor frustration also is that most of the game's stuff doesn't suit your build, because if you're going to optimize a specific build with specific traits, you're going to have a limitation on what kind of weapons and gear you care about. But if there's hundreds of different types of builds, then that implies there's hundreds of different types of gear that's really cool that you can't use. And so like there's
a respec option. So the more you collect, the more you could always just change your build up.
Yeah, you can change your build if you.
There are a limited amount per games, but there's still a surprising amount of the resource needed to do that. But carry on. Here,
it was great.
An example. There's I'm looking at the map and I'm like, oh, I wonder, that looks like something. It looks like a building. I bet I can go there, and I bet there's going to be something there. And 100%, there is absolutely something there. In fact, I think it's pretty awful what's up there. But go on. Which is the fun. Yeah, every you could be like, ooh, is that thing going to have treasure, or is that thing going to have a terrifying monster or dungeon that's going to slaughter me in a million pieces? The answer is yes. It's going to have those things.
Everything.
All of the above is the answer.
Yep. Anything and everything.
Didn't mean to derail
all of the time. Oh, you're great. So the nature of the open world was what was so fascinating and what got my attention of like wanting to sink my teeth in, because when you take this big map, it's pretty, the music is great, the atmosphere is wonderful. The dialogue is purposely obfuscated, or the story is purposely obfuscated through the very limited dialogue that you get, because it's the way it's telling the story. And all of that is very captivating, and it makes you want to just keep playing. And I found myself like very addicted to this game. I went through 60 hours a lot faster than I have a lot of other games because I kept wanting to play it. And I stayed up late too many times, nowhere near like Penguin did, but I stayed up late too many times. So I enjoyed it. It grabbed me. It gripped me. It is compelling. I want to explore the world. But I feel like the character build that I had made was based on online feedback about what was kind of approachable and or like that. You just melted a bunch of enemies. You can find those types of things online and like help you out. And so now, if you're a new player and you're jumping in for the first time, you're going to have all of that knowledge at your fingertips. An easy online Google will find anything you would need, builds that you should go after, maybe some easy early weapons that you can get that would help you get through some of the early things, get you over those hurdles and start having a good time, or roll off a cliff. I have done that so many times.
Oh, look at me. I'm still alive.
You can fast travel out, right?
Nope. No, I can't because I was in combat. Fun.
Gotcha. I don't know how long it has been.
I was a little disappointed, honestly. 30 minutes. No, you got 15 minutes.
10 more minutes.
Because we had 15 because 45 plus 30. If you need to go a little bit longer, that's why we have an extra hour of free time. Is if you
Yeah.
need to go a little bit longer, you can. But
I think I am just going longer
No
because
rush.
of the extra context and like
yeah,
trying to describe my feelings of From Software. And oh yeah, I hate difficult stuff. I really don't enjoy it. I don't like beating my head against a thing over and over and over and over again. And I just don't. It's not fun to me. I rage quitted Final Fantasy VII Remake so hard with those hard mode bosses, but I got it. I got the platinum. It just took some time, and it was not fun. At that point, the game wasn't any entertaining to me. It's anger-inducing and traumatic. I just want the trophy, and I want to move on. That's what I was motivated by. So most of Elden Ring was not that. It's a From Software game. Very few moments of actual frustration, little minor hiccups here and there. Exploring that frozen village with the archers was infuriating for like 10 minutes. Trying to figure out how to position yourself to take care of the ranged combat while you traverse the rooftops. And there was a couple of other things, but there was one boss that drastically changed my entire opinion of Elden Ring, and he completely wrecked the experience, soured the experience I was having in the game. And that is Melania or whatever Trump's wife's name is, whatever you want to call her. I don't know, but she is a shard bearer. There's a trophy attached to her, optional boss, not related to the main story. And I knew she was the hardest boss going into it, but I had all the stuff set up to like what I thought would work. 7 hours of dying over and over and over and over again was incredibly frustrating. And I wasn't quite done because I wanted to do a whole bunch of trophy wrap up before getting to the end so I could just do the endings and then get the platinum. So I could have finished the game, gone through all the endings, and then like revisited later with a cooler head. 7 hours. And the reason why, you might ask, well, why would you just keep throwing yourself at the boss? Why didn't you change your build? Because there was just enough RNG in there where I got her health, just 2-phase fight. So you think you've killed her, but you don't. There's a whole other phase. And then I got that health all the way down to like an inch, if you were to measure on my screen, like an inch of life left. And I was furious. And what I hated about it the most was the RNG aspect. I could go into the boss and die immediately and not change a thing, and then go back in and knock her down to an inch of her death without changing anything, like the exact same set of spells, tactics, responses, dodging, etc. And so that was just enough where like, I'm now mad. I'm completely disengaged from the game. I don't care anymore. And I'm just going to keep doing the same thing until this works. I'm just going to put time in. That probably padded my 7 hours more, but that doesn't excuse the game and how infuriating it is. That was just one boss. Penguin over here says she was overtuned, based on his experience with From Software, which we'll get to in his side of the review. A definitely overtuned boss for sure. But there should be like a tactic that I can do that worked. I even had Penguin come in and help me out, and he was actually worse than the Mimic Tier, which he used earlier. He's actually got the Mimic Tier up right now. It's a clone of yourself with your gear and your abilities, and it will fight alongside of you. That Mimic Tier can take infinitely more damage than a regular player character would. So Penguin would just die in the 3 hits that she kills you
I'll
in.
get to that.
And
I'll get to that part of it, yeah. So let's see what he said.
then Mimic
Flanker
Tier
Pilot says 7 hours is ridiculous. That would piss me off too. Yeah, I mean, 7 hours would piss anybody off. So we'll get to that. We'll get to. I'll get to more of that in my review, unless you want to keep talking about it.
Yeah, well, that was a major turning point in my experience for Elden Ring, because where I was having a blast, I was addicted, I was loving this world and loving everything in it. I was still playing a very optimized route. I still was following the trophy guide because it had come out when I was like 30 hours in the game.
That was a little disappointing.
Like,
they got it out. They got it out to me pretty fast, but maybe it's impressive that they got it out late at all, meaning that like the content and the like amount of discovery that had to happen was so vast that it wasn't even able to be out before. Like most of PowerPix's guides are out the day one, right?
On day one, yeah, because he gets them early.
The fact that right. So the fact that people who got it early still had to struggle to reveal the most optimal routes to the platinum is maybe a testament to how just much there is in this game to discover.
It's a huge, massive game, and so you take two aspects. One, trophy guide, right? I want to finish the platinum in a reasonable amount of time, and two is I'm a mage that cares about a very specific set of spells and gear. So I'm only going to go, now that there's guides and internet walkthroughs, like I'm going to go after the staff that's going to be awesome. I'm going to go after the hat that I need for this. I'm going to go after these spells and do these dungeons to get these rewards to make the boss fights for the trophies easier. Like that's kind of how I approached it. So everything I was doing in the game had a purpose. After about 25 to 30 hours when those guides had dropped, it went from like free range exploring, this is amazing and wonderful Breath of the Wild style looking at the world was very suddenly like tunnel visioned or streamlined into, okay, what helps my build and what helps me finish the game. And so that was where I'd finished the entire game in 60 hours. I had the platinum. And then I started the samurai for tonight. And so we could do some rune duping, which I guess we should talk about a little bit because that kind of might.
I'm not rune duping crap for you. You do you do it.
Oh, not for tonight. Well, we did that. We rune duped, leading up to my platinum. What that means is there's a kind of an exploit where you can drop runes. There's an item you get when you use the item from your inventory. You collect runes. That's your currency to level up and increase your levels and your stats. Your stream just paused. Oh, it's back. We're good.
Okay.
And so we had duplicated the runes to like vastly over level. So I'm like level 200 something, and it was done really, really quickly, which removed all the grinding. There's rune grinding spots online as well. So if you want to do it the quote right way, you can spend hours killing the same enemies over and over again.
It's not hours. By the time you get to late game, there's farming spots that will get you like 5 million runes in an hour. So they definitely loaded I think they allowed the rune duping because they realized they had created farm spots that were almost as effective. Like, so for the person who wants to do it legit, and honestly, that's in all the games. But I'll get to that in my review. All the games have crazy, cheesy rune farm or currency farming spots that like basically trivialize the leveling, at least on some level. Carry on.
Yep. I do find I want to talk about the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
No, not the mechanics. Not all. I don't want to talk about the mechanics yet. The technical presentation, if you will.
Yes,
it still has like the aesthetics of the game and the performance. It does not stay at a locked 60 frames per second, even on PS5. It's not. They don't have like the dynamic resolution scaling that most AAA, AA games have, where it adjusts the resolution on screen to keep the frame rate locked at 60. So it can get jumpy and skippy and random, which it didn't really affect much, but it was there. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I noticed like, I don't know how to describe the other aesthetic about the UI, which you can see in all of Penguin's screen right now. There seems to be a lack of polish amongst like the health bars and the enemy health bars and the lock on, and like the way things are presented, it feels a little rough or like aged, kind of Skyrim-y, or like an older Final Fantasy game would be, like Final Fantasy 11. I don't know how to describe it. It's hard to put words to it, but it's not as like.
And this is the improved version. You should have seen it at the CMT.
It's not. I'm playing Horizon Forbidden West, and like the UI is just gorgeous, polished. It's animated. It fits the world, immersion, etc. And this just feels a little bit different. So I was like, okay, not a huge deal, but it's that. And then the game feels aesthetically, of course, it's dark, but it's very not smooth. The textures aren't all like super high res, and there's not a lot of detail in like the brickwork. There's not a lot of crazy lighting gorgeousness that you see in a lot of modern games. So again, I'm looking at this, approaching it as a 10. It's what everyone says. Everyone says it's a 10. 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. And there's expectations tied to that this game never met. It was like, none, no. When it came to the clunkiness of the game, the UI, how it looks, its visual aesthetics, it's pretty in some scenes. There are gorgeous scenes, but overall, it's kind of it ebbs and flows. And I would actually consider the scene that you're doing now is like not one of the prettiest ones. Like that brick wall looks nice, but the way the lights of the spells and like the candles and the ambient stuff, like doesn't. I feel like they left a lot on the table, but they're From Software. They're not as big. The budget was nowhere near as high, and so it probably just speaks more to how spoiled I am by other big budget games than not. So the great
and
part
a game,
about it,
a 10 out of 10 game doesn't have to be hinging on its aesthetics alone, I guess.
Which I love. I will fight. I will die on that hill. Graphics don't make a game. Like Pokemon Arceus is amazing. And yes, I know the Switch is underpowered and the game looks potato sometimes, but absolutely incredible game.
Right.
So I'm not one of those people that are like, oh,
it doesn't live
it
doesn't live or die on the whether it looks good, right?
But it's just worth noting it was a thing that I'm talking about.
It certainly doesn't feel polished, for sure. Yeah. It's noticeably unpolished compared to what you might have been expecting.
Mm-hmm. And then the mechanics. So the combat mechanics are From Software's like bread and butter, right? That's the thing that matters the most: the dodge, the parry, the attack timing, the boss patterns, the enemy patterns. All that stuff works. It's great. It's there. It all comes together in a great way, to fluid-ish. Sometimes it's a little clunky with the dodging. I had a lot of trouble with the lock-on system because I was ranged, where the lock-ons would break as I was trying to adjust the camera. And so I would be trying to fire a spell at an enemy like Penguin's doing right now. And it would I would get attacked. And so I would turn around and start running, but the lock-on would stick. And so I was running towards the screen, which would usually result in me falling or hitting something or jumping off a ledge. Or I'd be in the middle of a fight trying to adjust the camera, and the lock-ons would switch between enemies, or it would break my point of view, and I would die. I died so many times, and I was kind of getting frustrated over that. And I was like, this is a mechanical failure. And again, this game's a 10. Like, I shouldn't be experiencing this kind of stuff, right? This is a mechanical issue. And I don't know if I just learned to get used to it, but
I still think you had a lock-on setting that you weren't used to.
I never really tweaked the lock-on settings. There's an auto lock-on setting that I adjusted a couple times, but didn't notice anything different. I think it's when you kill an enemy, it'll automatically lock on to the next one.
Right.
So I turned that off, which is fine. I can click the right stick and lock on. That's what I want. So yeah,
that's the auto target. Is
Pilot says in chat,
automatically targeting an enemy when attacking with unlock. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, he says, or she, they say, lock-on systems are difficult to get right. Assassin's Creed has those same problems. So yeah, and even going back to Ocarina of Time,
exactly. I was gonna say Zelda.
When I talk about
problems,
games being timeless, or you go back now in 2021 and go play Ocarina of Time, that Z targeting system is nowhere near as cool as it used to be. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Lock-on systems are very hard to get right. They are. And this game, to me, didn't. And it is what it is, I suppose. If I had to, let's see, what else? I covered mechanics. I covered graphics. I covered gameplay. The platforming is awful in this game. And there's that one... It's really, really bad because you had probably talked about the fall damage and how it's calculated whether you're on a horse or not, and how sometimes you can fall 5 feet, it's fine, and you fall 5 feet and you die. And I'm like, what is happening here? And it seemed like the falling damage was tuned to specific context, because there's a couple of catacombs where I know I had fallen the same distance that I'm looking at to try and cheese a dungeon. I was trying to shortcut a dungeon by dropping here, and I died. And I was like, that's not right. I was able to do that outside, and it didn't kill me. So why is it killing me here? And so it makes me think that From Software kind of tuned it's dynamic falling damage,
or they
based on where you are.
There were specific circumstances, or that's fine too. Yeah, that might be an explanation too. I was thinking that maybe they had specific areas where they didn't want you to cheese it by jumping, and so they added fall damage to that spot. But it's inconsistent with the physics of the rest of the game. Either way, sorry, I'll get to fall damage too. I don't want to steal,
but that's definitely
steal my own thunder there.
As you getting ready to drop down, that might kill you. You might be dead.
No.
Okay, you're fine. Yeah.
That one I knew.
But that's the gut check. You're like, I'm gonna die. Oh, I don't know. And there shouldn't be that kind of unpredictability when you're trying to platform in a game. It was kind of frustrating. I'm not trying to be superly overly negative. I do because I presented such a wonderful picture of what the game was doing to me. I was addicted. I love this.
My coworker said when I told him that I was you met Shane, but my coworker, when I told him we were doing a live stream, he said, so Termite will give the real review and you'll give the fanboy review. I said, ouch, criticism received.
Yes. And I don't know. I think I'm in a unique position here because I've never played From Software titles, and I was never a From Software fan, but this game was great. It's a wonderful video game. It's totally worth picking up if you are on the fence about it. If you are afraid of doing the padded time spent grinding or dying, there are guides online that will get you.
You have the advantage of having the wealth of information available to you that we did not necessarily when we started. So
and I loved there was kind of a meta aspect to the online, like the asynchronous online aspects of the game where players can lay down messages for others. There's one, you're standing on one right now, and it says time for item, try fire. So
you only have a limited number of you can't just write up, hey, you're gonna want to shoot these guys with fire arrows. You have to be a little bit more cryptic about it, because you only have certain phrases and words you can choose from.
Huh.
But I
didn't struggle here at all because I had range spells and just killed them before they could do anything.
Well, I'm not struggling necessarily. I'm just
dodging, and he's dodging and. No, okay, there you go. You got him.
I got him.
Yeah. So there's these internet hints that are dropped, or they're tricks. So it's trolling, but mostly helpful. So when you do find a troll message, it's obvious it's a troll message and kind of funny. I appreciated that a lot. I really enjoyed the expect our item ahead, or the obvious jokes that are not family friendly. I won't make here about fingers and holes. And those are hilarious and kind of
Ow.
a breath of comedy when you're sinking through a deep dark dungeon. I remember this very much so. Trying to get these things done. Yeah, dark aesthetic, dark story. You're a tarnished individual. You
So
are
you're
cast
at
out.
time, but I'll let you go a little
Okay.
longer because you're on
Gotcha.
a roll.
This is the last bit of the review, is kind of about the story, and it's the game. Most video games are like, yay, congratulations, you did the thing, or you're the chosen one, the hero story, you are destined for greatness, and everyone's encouraging and everyone's super happy and responsive, except like the obvious antagonist. In this game, you're just a worthless prisoner. Tarnished is what they call you, and you're like trying to prove yourself, for lack of a better description of what you're trying to do in the world or like accomplish. Everyone just expects the worst of you. Like, you are completely worthless, you are garbage trash, and unless you do something, then they're like, oh,
Whoa.
I guess you did that thing. Like, they're not like overly congratulatory, and they're not
Ouch.
like super excited that you helped them or solved a quest. And so it was a different tone than what I'm used to in most modern video games in general. And that, combined with the lack of handholding in the UI and like the quests and the GPS tracking and all the things, going back to Horizon Forbidden West, was just like, here's all the stuff on your screen that you need to do. Hit the map, boom, there's a sea of question marks and like all this stuff. And it's all called out for you. Like, Aloy's talking, oh, there's this thing over here, I should do this here. It's just totally doing everything for you as far as the thinking of the environment storytelling. And this game relies on environmental storytelling a lot. And it's great. It's good refresh. So are we going to do a score, or like,
You can if you want to give a score. I'm probably going to give a score, I guess.
Okay.
So.
I would give Elden Ring, the official Termite, 8 out of 10.
Oh, nice.
Overall. Yeah. At first, I was like, this is a 7.
Yeah, you were giving that. You were being pretty hard before, so I can live with an 8 if you can live with an 8.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm good with an 8, and that is it. So I don't know if you want to like finish up this section.
Oh yeah, if you don't mind, if you have anything else you want to talk about. I knew there was going to be like a few minutes of awkward transition, so because I probably won't want to be.
Well, I can transition in one click, and you're done. So I don't know if you wanted to show any of the viewers anything here at all.
This is a longer dungeon than I anticipated when I started it. So, look at this! I don't think I did this one in my first playthrough.
Interesting. What? I did this dungeon. I didn't do that. I remember falling down the shaft.
Okay, well, I'm now properly lost.
Neat.
So I might just have to warp out of here and do this later. But we have 5 minutes of awkward transition time, so I guess I'll just sort of respond to some of the thoughts you had, like not necessarily in an antagonistic way, but you talked about the UI, which I'll cover a little bit in mine, and some of the elements and the choices here it's very clear to like From Software veterans. Like, your brother would look at it and be like, oh yeah, but it was like that in all the games. So it's kind of like some of this is just their like flavor, right? Like, it's there. It's like they probably could have done a different style of UI, but like this is what they do. Like, this is what the kind of like thing they make. And then I guess similarly with the targeting system can be frustrating at times. I totally agree. But it's precise, meaning that like I don't necessarily. That's why I think that you had a setting weird. Is like, I don't think it was glitching out so much as you just were doing something and you didn't understand fully what you were doing, and that caused an issue. What you saw as an issue or a glitch was actually you inputting something incorrectly. Because usually, what people praise about these games is its precise and repeatable combat mechanics. So again, I'm not. I try to very much avoid the get good mentality because I don't think that that's fair or right necessarily. But I do understand the notion of being like, well, you know what? Like, there is certainly an aspect of you do have to learn it. And you do have to sometimes trial and error and die to realize, yeah, I probably shouldn't do it that way. And I think that I've heard that the intention behind Get Good is to say like, you can do it. Like, let's see, is this a real hidden path ahead or are we a liar ahead? Or a liar ahead. Yeah, the intention I think behind Get Good, at least what some people say, is that it was meant to be like, you have it within you. You can do it. You just need to keep at it until you like find the right
It's a very
thing.
constructive way of looking at get good toxicity.
It is.
I look at it as like gatekeeping and
No,
saying, this isn't good enough for you, so be quiet.
No, it can be. It can be. And I think incorrectly it's used that way. But I do know that like a lot in the a lot of people in the From Software community, I do genuinely believe have the best interest of the players that are struggling at heart and want people to understand that like they can do it if they just like put their mind to it and let themselves fail a couple times like I just did. I'm what you would call a veteran, and I still die to stupid stuff like that all the time. That's just like, okay, well, I know what I did wrong and I know how to fix it this time. So
yes.
So yeah,
we got
Flanker Pilot
chat. Yep.
Does say, yep. All right, cool. So I'll switch to my review here. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to look at the camera as much as possible, but I just realized that my notes are over here. I suppose I could pull it up on my phone. Let me do that. Let me pull it up on my phone.
Do it up. And Flanker Pilot said, thanks for calling out the get good people. So yes, the get good folks on the internet need to be called out. It is not okay to dismiss and demoralize folks who are struggling in a video game because of difficulty. That's not okay. So the encouraging way to look at it is they have more to learn. So help them.
Absolutely. And I do, like I said, my experience with the From Software community is they are eager to share what they've learned. If you go onto the Elden Ring subreddit right now and say, I'm having trouble with Melania as a caster, what should I do? I guarantee you the top comments are going to be actual tips and strategies, not just people being like, you need to get good. You might see the occasional a-hole who says that, but the reality is like most people are in that community are very chill. And genuinely want to share what they've learned, because these are games that are about knowledge, not about skill. That is I think one of the distinctions that people don't understand. If you know either builds, weapons, mechanics, like, then you can usually accomplish anything with then refining your skill. But they are, I won't say they're not about skill at all, but they are more about knowledge than they are skill. And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand. If you know things, you can usually overcome the issues you're having. So
I do want to show the audience how I mostly played this game when I was running. I was holding circle with my pointer finger and running like this. So it's hard to show in a mirror, but this is how I played the game most of the time. And it was awkward and terrible, and I hated it. And that's why I don't like O as the sprint button.
I don't have trouble with that. I guess I'm not trying to look out. But
I'm always trying to look while running.
Yeah.
So I want to pan the camera. I want to like be aware of my surroundings, and you can't really do that when.
I've got 30 minutes, so I'm gonna try to knock out this treatise here. Okay, so Elden Ring, Penguin's perspective here on this game. My thoughts, my review, so to speak. I love the game. If I had to give it a number, I'd give it at least a 9.5 and possibly a 10 out of 10. Knowing, of course, there is no such thing as a perfect game, so a 10 is not necessarily a perfect score. It's just the highest possible score you can give a game based on the context of all the other games you've ever played, right? Is how I look at it. And this game is definitely up there. I'm not going to say it's on my personal top 10 list. I'm not quite sure it's earned that spot yet, but it is probably the best game that's come out in the last 5 years. That's close. It'd be a toss-up. I say 5 years because I'm specifically referencing 2017 when Breath of the Wild came out, but I guess God of War would be up there as well for me. So it's tough. It's definitely on the top games that came out in the last 5 years. But let's talk about why, and let's talk about some of my thoughts on it. So just kind of like an overview, just sort of talking about like what the elements are, and some opinions on them. But this section is not going to be so much opining as it's going to be more like actual descriptors. The gameplay I'll hit on first. It is it's a From Software game in an open world, right? Like that's kind of the best way to describe it. It's not but it's more the open world design is very much more so, I've been saying this since before the game came out, and it fits. It's more so Breath of the Wild than it is like Assassin's Creed, right? And you had hinted on the fact that the game doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't give you a checklist, a chores list, or a bunch of like waypoints on the map. Go here, go here, go here, and do this thing here. Oh, these markings mean that you're going to be dueling people. These markings mean you're going to be like infiltrating a base. No, it just puts the map in your hands and puts the world in your hands and says, go. And that's exactly what Breath of the Wild did beautifully. And it was one of the first open world games. Breath of the Wild was one of the first open world games to capture my attention. And this game, honestly, I think that's the core. I mean, yes, the combat and some of the mechanics, the obtuse mechanics, they are very From Software. I think that's a good thing, but I understand that detractors of From Software might have a hard time with those things. If you're not a From Software fan, you're going to have a harder time with this game, period. But that doesn't mean that people who are new to From Software aren't going to love it, right? Does it make sense? Like the distinction there is like, if you're someone who already kind of hates From Software games, you're going to have a hard time with this game. If you're someone who loves From Software games, you're going to love this game. If you are someone who has never played a From Software game, roll the dice, because you may like it, you may hate it, you may like aspects of it, hate other aspects of it, but lean towards liking it. You may just kind of like, there are some things I like about it, but it's just too hard or annoying or whatever. And so like, it really is. It run the gamut, roll the dice there. But like, again, that like tight, precise combat that is both punishing but never so punishing that you don't feel like you can't do it. That is very much present here, and that is kind of what From Software does best. And yeah, like the emphasis of the exploration is very much on exploration and experimentation within that
map.
thing. Yeah, there you go. So aesthetics, I'll talk about how it looks. Termite was not wrong in any of his criticisms. The game definitely is a little rough around the edges visually. I think it's closer to Dark Souls 3 than it is Demon Souls. That makes sense. So it's closer to Dark Souls 3 in looks, which is a game that came out in 2016 for the PS4 generation of consoles. And it doesn't look nearly as good as Demon Souls, which was a game that was made remade exclusively for the PS5 by Blue Point, and it is visually remarkable what they were able to do with a game that is over a decade old. This does not even get really close to that, which is disappointing for graphic snobs, but like we mentioned, it's not everything. The game, but it is clear to me that this game was a game that was made to be a cross-gen game, right? Like this is a PS4 game as much as it is a PS5 game, and so it does look fine on the PS5, but not as much as it could, since it had to kind of still account for older hardware. Plus, it's a huge open world; they have to like load a bunch of things all at once. The transitions are fairly seamless, despite that. There are very few actual load screens. I mean, you go into a legacy dungeon and it's the same as if you were in the open world. I did not expect that. There's seamless transition into the dungeons. That was a surprise to me. I expected there to be load screens. So yeah, so what they're able to do with those visuals, I think, is kind of where they really shine. Like the world, as you said, is beautiful. Like it's got its Dark Souls moments, like in the level I was just in those catacombs. Like absolutely, it's got those like narrow corridors and tight hallways. But it's and dark spaces, right? Visually dark. But for every tiny, open, cramped space, you have a vast open field with trees and towers and cliffs, and again, that feeling of like I can go anywhere on this world that's not covered in water. If I can see it, I can get to it, is kind of what it succeeds at doing, which is what an open world should do. There's very few, I'm not going to say there are no, but there are very few artificial barriers. There are just rules, and you having to follow the rules to get where you need to go, which again is what Breath of the Wild does exceptionally well as well. I also was astounded at how the game was able to make familiar biomes feel brand new, like feel unique and still feel like a new world. So like, yeah, there's the swamp biome, and yeah, there's the city, and yeah, there's the like the sprawling metropolis kingdom, and there's the castle and the volcano and the snow place, but they still all feel like their own world, like through the way that the like geology works, like with the crazy jutting spikes and stuff, like of rock formations, and the golden trees and stuff being the primary form of flora across the landscape. It still has this feeling and sense of being a unique world to explore. You still with me? You still hear me okay? You're very focused on what you're doing. Okay, cool.
I just went through the check of the entire control system to try and figure out where I put my horse. I couldn't figure out how to hold triangle. If you hold triangle, you get a full different menu for the D-pads. I completely forgot about.
Pro tip.
I was just trying to like figure out where all my stuff was. Yeah.
Set your potions there, because if you set your potions there, then you won't have to like furiously scroll through your down button trying to find your potions in the middle of combat. So you just get
nice.
into the physical habit of like, I need to potion, hit triangle, hit down, like that combination. So
Gotcha. Okay.
so yeah, visually I thought it was beautiful what they were able to do, even with their sort of limited technical prowess here. All right, the story I don't have much to talk about here. In some of our other reviews, we've done a review in a podcast. We did the review of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which had a lot to talk about story wise, being a remake of a beloved franchise that you and I both love. In our Last of Us 2, we had lots of story to cover. This is not one of those reviews. So don't worry too much about spoilers. I'm not going to drop too much. I'm only going to drop a couple of bits here, so we don't have to give like a spoiler warning. There are little bits you get here and there, so I've kind of picked up a little bit of the story as I've gone along, which is one of the triumphs, I think, of this game, is it's very true to reality in the sense that, like, nobody ever has the full picture of what's happening in the world. We all only ever get bits and pieces and have to kind of piece together our own narratives within it, right? And then sometimes we find out really important things later, and that's exactly what this game is like, smarter, more dedicated nerds will go through and find all the truisms of this game and the realities of what the story is, and will share that with us in videos, and we will marvel at the story that George R.R. Martin and Hidetaka Miyazaki crafted. When you just play through the game, you're going to get bits and pieces of it, but you're never going to feel like you know the whole thing. And that might turn you off. You might be like, I don't really want to just play a game where I'm smashing bosses for no reason. And may never ever know that reason, because I'm not a dedicated From Software fan, so I'm not going to go to Vati Vidya and watch his breakdown of the lore, because I don't care that much, right? So if that's you, then you're not going to want to play this game for the story. But if you like this feeling of being like, I'm going to get a little bit now and then see the full picture later, and then all those little things will make sense. That's how I played Bloodborne. As I just kind of played Bloodborne and was like, okay, like a story happened, but I don't know what it is. And then when I listened to the videos later, I was like, oh my gosh, oh, I get it now. Oh, that makes sense. And that was a super satisfying experience. So I haven't had the experience yet with Elden Ring, but I expect to have that experience in a couple of months or so when, these guys drop their videos explaining everything. So that's kind of just par for the course, though. Like, you're not going to necessarily, unless you go in and start to read every piece of lore and every bit and pay attention to every conversation and have a flow chart connecting these things, you're probably not going to get super into the story. I will say, though, one of the things I found fascinating was the world building. It's very clear that George R.R. Martin had influence here, because there's like multiple different kingdoms that all have different politics and things they want and flavors. And then all the religions. Holy crap. Like in Dark Souls 3, there was like light religion, dark religion, fire religion. And that was like the three primary schools of magic right there. In this game, there's like multiple different schools of magic, multiple different like faiths, like different religions that you can follow. You're cracking up here, but you're muted. So what's going on?
I'm muted. No,
Yeah,
you should be able to hear me.
I couldn't hear you laughing. So
I was trying to be quiet.
Nice.
Yeah, that was funny. I don't know how to
didn't see,
restock
'cause I'm
any
not-
of my arrows, and I don't know how to use it, bow and arrow. So like, I'm laughing because I let an enemy get way too close to me while trying to hit arrows, and then I got on my horse and took off, and then he killed me in the back.
If you go
and
into
I've
your
already-
inventory, next to all your weapons and stuff, there are like 4 slots for arrows, 2 for bolts on crossbows. You can load your arrows into there, and you can craft new ones if you need to. So there's your tip.
oh yeah, I'm out of arrows. That helps. That's yep.
Yep. So excuse me. The where was I? World building, George R. R. Martin, lots of religions. Yeah, it made playing a faith character so much more interesting, because you're not sitting there like, if you decide to go full faith, even if you start as a prophet or a confessor, there's multiple different flavors of faith. Like, you're not committing to playing a paladin. You could play a freaking dragon priest, or you could play a lightning warlock, or you could play a like a dark sorcerer, or a dark pyromancer. Like, there's so many options even within the sort of structure of like intelligence, faith, strength, dexterity. Like, these builds could mean totally different things depending on like what weapons and loadout you go with. And I think that's a triumph, and I think that's in a lot of ways George R. R. Martin's influence. So let's see, what if I start at 45 and I'm going for 30 minutes, then I actually start at 9:50. So if I'm going for 30 minutes, that puts me at 9:20. Okay, cool. If our stream goes a little bit long, that's fine. We're only doing this once a month, right? So
That's it.
but I'll keep moving along, plugging along here.
Everything that I have talked about in my review is being shown off here in my gameplay, as I have struggled to learn the UI and like learn how. I just went to craft arrows, like you had said. Oh, you just craft them, right? I don't have them. I can't craft them, and I have no clue where the recipe is. The game doesn't tell you. The map has no indication to where you learn who to talk to get the thing.
Looks like you'll have to use the unlimited sword swiping you have. Looks like you'll have to do a little bit of melee there, little mage boy.
Yeah, and that's not working very well either.
You'll get it. You'll figure it out. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll move on from the story. I think the story is interesting the way they built it. I will say one last little point there is that Miyazaki had talked about one time. Apparently, in discussing working with George R.R. Martin, he had talked about how like it was fascinating to get all this lore about all these heroes and kings and lords and then destroy them, like tear them apart and turn them into monsters. I was like, wow, that's an interesting way to tell a story. Like that's an interesting way to build the story for your world. And that's what he did. And so the game still, as far as like a base narrative goes, still kind of follows the main plot points that like the Dark Souls games follow, right? Like you are some piece of crap that wakes up in a world with no memory and have to try to like struggle your way to godhood, right? By slaughtering seemingly impossible monsters and lords and never and kind of rising up from the ashes there. So all right, cool.
Very early spot where the troll jumps down and you have the whole hill full of enemies was
don't do that yet.
Cakewalk at this level, at this age and stage of the game with my mage, because I was able to like stand back and just lob spells and like be safe. Yeah, that's a lot.
You can get some stuff. You need to go. You're not ready for that spot yet. You need to go get some levels, get some sick weapons, some weapon arts. Maybe that's something I'll be hitting on here in a second. Yeah, the weapon arts, man. The things the ashes of war that you never use because you're a caster, and the weapon arts that you attach to hit L2 with to do cool stuff. Yeah. So anyways, to make melee a little bit more palatable with some options. Anyways, so we'll get to that. So I just wanted the last kind of overview thing I wanted to hit on is I wanted to talk about how does this game fit in with the rest of From Software's lineup. As a From Software fan, I can kind of talk to some of the, I'm not going to sit here and give you the full history or anything. I'm just going to talk about where does this game fit in with the rest of their repertoire. So this is still, like I said, a From Software game through and through. It has, for better or worse, all of their highest, bestest, captivating elements, their highest highs, and also some of their worst, most obtuse design issues are still present in these games. So their high highs and their low lows are still very much so present in this game, in case you're wondering. They have made some improvements and they have made some like better choices, but they've also in many ways I think not gone far enough in sort of trying to improve the more quality of life things that people rightly kind of have trouble with as far as sort of that obtuse those obtuse choices. I kind of get that why they did it, and I'll circle back around to that. I do agree with some of the assessment that other reviewers have had, where this game does feel like the culmination of a lot of their other games, right? Meaning it's got all the like encumbrance and spell systems of like Dark Souls, items, leveling, all that stuff from the Dark Souls franchise. But it's got the stealth and the jumping and sort of the verticality of level design that Sekiro brought to the table. And also having some of the weapon mechanics and creativity, if not like the direct one-to-one parallel mechanics, they have a lot of that same spirit of creativity that Bloodborne brought to the table with their weapon design. And so it really does feel like they've learned a lot and put it all into this game, while also simultaneously making a solid open world, again, which I'll circle back around to elaborating some more on in a bit. The open world, let's talk about it right now. I will say that the open world works surprisingly well. I was a little bit worried when I first read about this game that the open world might make things, not necessarily, I wasn't so much worried that it would make it easier, but I was worried that it would take some sort of their obtuse game design choices and make it really annoying. But they made me feel better about that in some of the marketing and interviews they did, and they talked about how they added a lot more checkpoints and stuff throughout the world, so any run back is not that bad, and that turned out to be true. So at no point are you sitting there being like, oh my gosh, I just spent hours recreating what I just did, for the last hour.
Yep. I was able to run past enemies a lot to get back.
And
to
there were checkpoints like right outside the boss battles and pretty much every boss, every major boss for the most part. Yeah.
I don't care about them anymore. I'm just gonna keep going.
I will say
like a group of enemies, and I was like, meh, just gonna go past them. Whatever.
Yeah. I will say that I also agree with the assessment that this is probably the most approachable game they've made in the last decade. They give you a lot more options, right? Like, just this game is their options game, right? Like, you can always change your loadout in regards to, like, if something's not working, you can pick a different, as I mentioned, Ash of War. You can pick a different spirit. You can summon these. First of all, you can summon spirits that pretty much act like AI co-op partners that you have at all times, but like with none of the downsides of co-op partners. Like, it doesn't scale the bosses up like it does with co-op. So you have these spirits available to you. And even just the open world design itself allows you to go anywhere that, like, if you're having trouble, you can go do something else that might be easier, and then might give you a reward or give you levels to allow you to go do the harder thing. You don't always have that choice in Dark Souls. I mean, you can always go farm in Dark Souls or Bloodborne, but like, you don't always have the choice to like go do something else, like a different route. Like, you might lock yourself out of like other bosses if you go too far in a different direction in those other games. So even though there are exploration elements and nonlinear elements in those games, it's nothing like this, where like, I'm pretty confident that I'm able to do pretty much everything in the game for the most part. There are some things you have the chance of locking yourself out of, but they're so far into the game that it's like you're usually pretty fine no matter where you are, to like know that you can always kind of come back to where you were when you're stronger. Where you were having trouble, you can always come back when you're stronger. And then even like smaller things, like they added a guard counter, which is like a parry, but like the parry is a high risk, high reward maneuver. Like, you have to put yourself open to a lot of damage, but if you time it right, you can stagger them and then go in for a big stabby stab. Guard counters aren't that rewarding, but they are much less risky. So it's kind of like a low risk, medium reward maneuver where you can hold your shield, and then when they hit you, you can hit R2 and do a counter attack that sometimes will stagger them and break their poise. So it's a pretty cool game. Yeah, you can do that in this game.
That with this little shield right now.
Do you have a shield?
I have a little one, like a little circular one. It's on my. I was using.
It's not going to absorb 100% damage, but you can block.
It doesn't.
It'll take some damage, but you can still do a guard counter because it won't stagger you. Yeah, you should try it. R2 immediately after the block connects, hit R2. You'll hear a ching, and then your character will do a cool counter strike. So, all right, awesome. I will say that as far as it ranks in my From Software games favorites, it is not surpassing Bloodborne. I still think Bloodborne was one of their most creative and visually and storytelling, like, fascinating games they've ever made. And Elden Ring is great for all of its greatness, though. Still doesn't surpass Bloodborne for me. I like Dark Souls, but this game's a little too much Dark Souls. I wish they had gone a little bit further away from Dark Souls in their design of this game, because they had the opportunity to do so. So, for all intents and purposes, this game is in many ways Dark Souls 4 with a lot of the elements, with new elements and a lot of the elements they had in other games. So that's fine. It's still great, but it's not, like, I feel like it could have gone farther. And that's what Bloodborne is for me, is the truest, most interesting, and most fun departure from their formula that I've seen them do since I've been a fan. Okay, I will talk about some praise first, things I loved. Again, I've been talking a lot about the open world, and I'm not going to stop. The open world, what I do want to say is, again, I've been comparing it to Breath of the Wild. The last thing I'll say really about the open world is that I do think this game is the true heir to Breath of the Wild, meaning a lot of games have tried to sort of mimic what Breath of the Wild did, and most of them don't get beyond the visuals of it. I think of like Genshin Impact or Immortals Phoenix Rising, even Arceus in many ways. They're really just emulating the visuals of Breath of the Wild while still having all the trappings of open world games that, like, people have come to resent, meaning that, like, the checklist, the formula, the waypoints, the hand holding, they don't feel like games that you're supposed to go and find things and then the joy of simply discovering things. That's what Breath of the Wild does. They instead feel like games where they have a very specific curated linear path they still want you to follow while giving you a few dalliances here and there. That's what, like, open world games are for the most part, since like Assassin's Creed and Skyrim really popularized them. And now with this game, it feels like it actually learned that lesson from Breath of the Wild, that what makes a good open world game is a game that lets you sink your teeth into a world and just enjoy the beauty of discovery. I I love that the combat has new options, right? Like I said, and then I see so much creativity in the Ashes of War that have a range of abilities I feel like I haven't even begun to crack open because I did play mostly a mage, and like a mage hybrid in my first playthrough. And I feel like there's a whole range of like builds that I'm just like in my mind, I'm already like, oh, I could build for that. Oh, I could build for that. Oh, I could build for that. And that's awesome. So lots of new options and stuff like that. The combat still feels great. The world and level design, I think, is beautiful. As I mentioned before, it still feels like a unique, beautiful world. And then, everything kind of comes together to feel, like you said, the game is so addicting. It's so hard to put down. Like, so many nights I was just like, it's 2 a.m. Penguin, go to bed. But I really just want to do one more thing. And that one more thing would turn into 10 more things, of course. And like no game has done that since Breath of the Wild for the most part. Like even God of War, I'd be like, okay, I've reached my limit. I'm going to put it down. Like this game, I feel like I don't have a limit. I just have life that gets in the way. So
you can just go all the time.
Right, exactly. So I am not without my criticisms, though. I am a man of objective reason, and so there are some things that I will, even as a diehard fan, even as a defender of this game, there are things that are just absolutely unacceptable in game design, and I'm willing to call them out. The gravity, as you mentioned, like F the gravity, man. I'm so ticked off. You talked about 7 hours you spent on a boss, and that sucks. I will agree with that. That sucks. Some of that's your own doing, but that sucks. You did the freaking ending, the jumping puzzle for the ending, the Friar Frenzy ending. You did that in like 3 tries. It took me like 45 minutes of straight just dying from jumping wrong to get that freaking ending. I felt like it was a punishment for trophy hunters, and I was so livid because this was not something that was about my skill. Well, it was about my skill, but my skill not for fighting and slaying demons and bosses and overcoming challenges. It was literally just the physics here are just borked, and I hate it.
Did you get the messages from the internet that was like,
I did. There was
backwards here and roll here and.
No, I had to look up a straight up video because the messages, there were so many of them at the point, because I don't think people had found the actual optimized route at that point. Some people online had, but enough people that were in my like network that were showing up messages or whatever. No, it was a mess at the time. And I was just like, I can't do this. It was so annoying. And it was all because the gravity and the fall damage and the platforming has always been awful in these games, but they've never made it much of a defining feature in their other games. Like there are some like odd, weird platforming bits in Dark Souls and Bloodborne, but like nothing like this where it's like, it's an open world. You're going to have to do some platforming and jumping at some point. And you do. And every time I feel like it's just a toss up as to whether or not I'm going to get through it in a reasonable way. Also the multiplayer, a mess. It's always been a mess in these games.
It's super clunky.
But it was so forgivable for the last decade because it was like, okay, yeah, all right, Dark Souls, the game came out in 2010 or 11. Like, I get it. It's an old system. It's an old server structure. And certainly it's like, that's our problem here. And then it kept going all throughout all the Dark Souls games, and Bloodborne all had the same system. And still, as I'm playing through this backlog of games over the last year, I'm like, okay, all right. Like, I see how they're like just kind of carrying on with what they've got, but also like, I get it. This is still like, we're still talking over 5 years ago. Sure, I'll make room for this, even though I think it's stupid. But it's 2022 now. I'm like, come on, guys, invest in better server architecture or something. Like, there are some design choices that make sense to carry on from the previous games to make them feel like a seamless experience, to make them feel like your thing. This is not one of those. Come up with a multiplayer system that actually makes sense. Remnant from the Ashes should be your prototype there. You still kind of have to like summon people, but you can do so from a menu. And you can do everything you can do in the single player game as far as like manage your character, like sites of grace and all that stuff, going back to town. You guys can do that together in Remnant, and you can't do any of that in any From Software game. And it's just so weirdly restrictive, and like, I get what they're going for. They're trying to make it so that multiplayer doesn't trivialize the game, but they do that in other ways that make sense, and they shouldn't do it in these ways, the way they have it. But it also just doesn't work half the time, right? Like literally today I went to go like drop some items off for a friend. And I couldn't even summon, like we couldn't even find the signs. I spent an hour trying to get it to work. And it turned out there was a maintenance today. And like, I think that something broke after the maintenance, but it's like, I shouldn't have to take an hour to figure that out. It should send a message saying there's an error. Stop trying to do this, right? As opposed to just me not being able to get it to work. And then this also applies to PvP. The PvP is just awful right now. It's not so bad in consoles, but poor PC players, the game has a really awful anti-cheat solution that's like really old, and hackers have already figured out how to break it. And they like they were getting people caught into death loops. They could like hit you with a thing and then like change your coordinates to anywhere on the map, and they would just like drop you. And every time you reloaded, you drop into the same spot, and you couldn't like it would just basically break your save. They did patch that in today's maintenance. Like you can't do that anymore, supposedly. Nice. But like there were other things too. Like I saw a famous hacker that would get on there and just like hit people with lasers that would give them items they're not supposed to have, and they would get soft bans. Like their account would get soft banned.
So you could be banned by someone else's like stuff.
Yeah,
like
by a hacker.
Playing the game like I am right now, someone could just pop in and tag me with a
there
laser,
are certain,
and then I'm banned.
Yeah, like if you're, I mean, there are still limitations on the PvP, but yeah. So it's just like it's easy to hack. And then even if you are playing it like legit, even when it's working as intended, like the design is still a little bit like unbalanced, right? Like all invasions are going to be 2v1 in the favor of the invadee, because you can only invade people who are flagged in co-op. Now there are like duels you can do and stuff like that, but still in general it's just like you're almost always signing up for disadvantage when you're invading. And as much as that sounds good to the average person who just wants to play the game and not deal with a-holes invading their game, totally get it. It's nice to have like I've got a partner at least, but like there's an aspect too of like I would get invaded sometimes and then I would kick that person's butt, and there was something vindicating and satisfying about being like, you come into my house, like yeah. So that can be really satisfying too, even if it is just one-on-one, even if your game's getting interrupted. So anyways, and then they do things like there's no horse PvP, there's no jousting, and they have a horse in the game and no like horse PvP. That kind of
a lot of horseback combat.
Yeah, and that's like, and that's fun, that's different, that's interesting, and like not having any solution for that just sounds is a wasted opportunity. And I get that they didn't want people to just run away or whatever, but like,
yeah,
I have the same horse, right? Like, and then so there's this, and then there's also ways to deal with horses in the game, like mounted enemies. So I just feel like that was a wasted opportunity. And it sucks to be the person invaded and then not be able to get on your horse for the duration of the invasion. It's just like, oh, like they could have made it. They could have done all kinds of things. Now I'll get to some of the improvements they could have made. And then like going back to co-op too, like I said, co-op with the spirits, you can have all the advantages of having a partner to distract the enemy, so you can line up your big hits without any of the disadvantages of co-op. Like when you co-op, the boss's health and stuff goes up. When you do a spirit, that doesn't happen. So like the spirits make it. It's like, in my opinion, there should never be like if there are disincentives for co-oping, then those same disincentives should be in place like for the alternative to co-oping, right? As opposed to like, there's no reason why you would want to ever co-op when you have a level 10 mimic tier, right? Like, so that's my like, in my opinion, I was like, when you and I was like, this fight should not necessarily be easier using a spirit, the one that you were talking about, without like, me as a Souls veteran who has done this fight before, it shouldn't be harder just because I'm here. Yeah. So that was a little disappointing. I do feel like the co-op is just poorly thought out. Like, and then losing access to your horse when you're co-oping. There are fights where it's like, okay, you just can't do that fight co-op. Like General Radon, no, I'm never doing that fight co-op. Why? Because you need your horse in that fight. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyways, and then finally crafting was I was super excited about crafting, like, oh, another option to do things. And they showed off things like sleep darts and whatnot. And yes, you can make those things, but like the recipes are all spread out and hard to find, and you only ever get like a few things. And then they just don't add items that are really useful enough. Consumables have never been very useful in these games. And I can see it maybe being more useful crafting for an archery. But like if all you're ever doing is crafting, like if only like one or two builds in the game benefit from crafting at all, that kind of sucks, right? Like all the builds should have things in the crafting menu that make it compelling to craft.
Hardly anything at all.
Yeah, no, we pretty much
playthrough.
I haven't either, because like everything you get from a consumable, you can get like in your character build better, stronger, and more scaled. So it's like, okay, guys, I was just really hoping for cool things. Like you could have been able to, like, it would have been really cool if you could have crafted weapons and spells and stuff. or if crafting had been the method that you upgraded your weapons with instead of smithing stones, right? If you had to gather materials unique to each weapon, that would have been felt cool, and it would have felt rewarding when you found the materials you needed to upgrade your weapon. The fact that it's like there were so many options they could have done, directions they could have gone. So with that in mind, I do want to talk about some like other improvements that I think would have really kind of taken this game to the next level, more so than it already is. T-Bone said here that he found crafting to be useful in past From Software games, and not as useful in Elden Ring. I think you mean consumables, because this is the first one that has crafting. I just didn't. Maybe I've never found consumables to be very useful in these games, so maybe it's just a me thing. But
yeah, you can get like fire grease that coats your weapon in fire, and like all these other types of consumables. I never used any of that stuff.
Right, because so many of your weapons can't use them anyways. If you put an Ash of War on your weapon to give it a damage type, then you can't put fire grease on it or any of the greases on it. So like, why would you ever do that to just a base weapon? I don't see the advantage so much, depending on your build, I guess. But like, still. So, anyways, some other improvements I think could have been made to the game. I'll wrap up here in a second, and then we can just do our free play stuff. I do think that the game desperately does need a third-person shooter reticle targeting solution, because like right now, if you pull out your bow, I don't know if you can do that right now, but like if you pull out your bow, it's like it goes into a first-person reticle aiming, so you do have some free aiming, but then your character gets super slow, you can't move, and this isn't a game designed to have first-person shooter mechanics, so it feels really bad when you go to free aim, and you can only do it with bows. You can't do it with spells. So even though there is a free aiming solution already in place, you can't free aim like spells, so you can only do it with arrows. So like, God of War is a game that has a lot of Souls-like inspiration in its combat, and it implements a beautifully elegant third-person reticle, like free aiming system, for the throwing of the axe, right? So does Horizon Zero Dawn. It has very much. It's an archery game, so of course it makes sense. But it's got very much the same kind of like thoughtful combat where you're having to like make strategy. You're only fighting a few enemies at once, and it also does the third person reticle aiming, free aiming. And I feel like the game could benefit. This game could benefit a lot from that for range, all forms of range combat, like both spellcasting and archery should have that option. It should just be built into the game as part of it. Like I don't think it would break anything about the game to have that. Kind of aiming. So that's an improvement.
Made it really difficult to do like some targeted ranged things, like around corners or like distance enemies. Your spells would just like hit random walls. I'm like, if I could aim, I wouldn't have this issue.
Yep, exactly. So I also think that this game so badly needs an adventure mode. Like, why do people not, like, any game developer from the past like decade of gaming that's making an RPG that is designed to be like in any way repeatable, where you're supposed to be encouraged to like do things over again, but incentivized to do that. I do not see, especially in an open world game like this, why there is not some kind of adventure mode. Like make it so that you have to beat the campaign first and then you unlock adventure mode. But holy crap, imagine an adventure mode in this game where they like open everything up, like no restrictions, like you can go anywhere in the world and fight any boss in any order with no like restrictions on anything, and then can just and then you can co-op freely, right? Like there's no restrictions on co-op. You can like summon someone up. There's no walls. You can all go together. You can all mount up together. Make that PvP too. Like make it so the PvP people can kind of just invade in and get warped to your spot, and then you guys fight and stuff. Whatever. I don't care. Opt in, opt out for PvP. Opt in, opt out for invasions. Play how you want, with who you want, how you want, where you want. And then add cool, fun new things like random boss encounters, or like Demon Souls had a fractured mode in the remake where you could like reorganize and do things in a whole different order. And so like roll the dice in adventure mode in Elden Ring and put bosses in places they shouldn't be, right? Out in the open world. Like that kind of thing would be super great and super awesome. And the game desperately needs it, and it would go a long way to addressing a lot of my frustrations with how co-op was implemented, right? Because if I had another game mode where co-op was encouraged, whereas in this game it feels like it's so greatly discouraged, that would be just amazing. So
and there was a thought you had triggered me, is like Oh, I was shocked. Shocked. I genuinely thought you could refight bosses. Like I didn't even know you couldn't until I had platinumed the game. I was
Yep.
like, you can refight. I think we had slacked each other a message, and I was like, you can't refight bosses. What?
No.
Like,
No.
there's no way to do it. Once the
One
boss
and
is
done.
dead, that's it.
That's it. Yep.
Like, that's
gotta make a new game.
crazy.
Yeah, right. So some kind of like, even just some kind of like trial mode or whatever where you can go in and like refight bosses would be also great. I agree. Just for fun, right? Not even for like
Right.
rewards, but just to like be like, okay, can I beat this boss now better with this build without having to re-roll and like go through the whole half the game again, right? Yeah. There are other quality of life things I wanted to hit on, but I don't feel like are that necessary. Just there are some obtuse decisions that are beyond the regular kind of obtuse, but things that are just straight up cruel. Like you have to like use a potion to revive your horse, right? That's fine. I love that decision. The game asks you, do you want to use a potion to revive your horse? And like the answer is always yes. But guess which answer From Software decided to default the cursor to select? Not yes. And when you're in the middle of the fight trying to get back on your horse that has died, the answer is always yes. Do I want to summon my horse, revive my horse? So that was like, are you kidding me, guys? So things like that, some quality of life improvements are there. And then the last thing I want to hit on was I've always hated leveling individual weapons in these games. Ever since Bloodborne, I first played Bloodborne. They have that same system in Bloodborne, and I've always hated it because I'm like, I get a new weapon, and I'm so excited I got a new weapon, but then I realize I'm going to have to invest a bunch of resources into this. I can't use this right away, and that doesn't feel good. I want to be able to, like, even if it's a similar weapon, right? Like, if it's like I got one hammer, and now I have a new hammer, I want to be able to use that new hammer that's got cool new damage types or sweet like new, move sets. So I always felt like you should be able to level weapon classes, right? As opposed to, so like level your great swords, and then when you get a new great sword, it's as effective. You're just swapping it out for the better version of it to make that feel more rewarding. Now, granted, there are going to be guides now where it's like you're going to want to use this weapon for this half of the game until you get this one, and then you'll be saving all your resources and making it. And they also made it recently, they like nerfed all the resource prices, so you can go in and just buy like stuff to, usually now it's just a matter of like farming runes to get what you want. So that's a little bit better, but I still have always felt like just like let me level weapon classes, and then that way I can get the feeling of excitement when I get a new weapon. I get that with sorceries, right? All the new sorceries or spells, you're just like, sweet, a new one, and slot it in there and you're ready to go. And you don't have that with weapons, which is just disappointing.
Nope.
So cool. All right. Well, that kind of concludes my review. I do want to talk. I have some sort of like kind of controversy things I want to cover, but I can cover that in more of a free play aspect. I did want to kind of, and then we can kind of make this a free discussion here portion of it. But obviously there's lots of controversies with this game. Like, and we have talked at this on our podcast and stuff at length about the discussion of difficulty and all that stuff. And so I don't really want to cover that here, but I did want to cover this aspect. I think you and I had talked about how, like, you've mentioned how, like, Souls fans seem to get very defensive of these games.
They're so touchy.
Like that, to the point where it feels like anytime you criticize it, legitimate or not, you're going to get just completely flamed. And I think that there's a reason for that. I do think that is a valid criticism of the community that needs to be brought up for sure. Like, guys, calm down, like it like, for one. But that said, I do think equally there might be a reason why, and that reason is because I think that there's just as much of a negatively passionate like hatred of these games. Like, detractors of these games, I think, can sometimes be as rabid and unreasonable and entitled as supporters of these games, to the point where, like, if a normal person hates Skyrim, they go, or most people, I would say, if you hate Skyrim, you're like, it wasn't for me, I moved on. I didn't like it. Like,
and no one will fight you.
And people will be like, oh, but yeah, people won't fight you. They'll be like, oh, I loved it. Like, but if you didn't get the same feeling, I get it. It's a long game, and if you screwed up your build and just had a bad time with it, like, I get it. So they're not going to fight you on it. But the thing is, like, From Software detractors are like, I hated that game. It was too hard. Like, and it ruined my life. And it's the worst game ever. And I'm personally offended that this game was bad. Or, sorry, that this game was hard. Or this game was obtuse. It's like, they get weirdly as emotionally upset as the supporters get when people criticize it, right? It's weird. I've noticed. So I think that's like, well, if you're going to get passionate about hating on this game, then we're going to get passionate about defending this game, right? And then on top of that, like, many of the criticisms that people have, many of the things that people weirdly demand that From Software change about these games are the same things that a lot of people who love these games love, right? So like the difficulty, people who hate the difficulty, the supporters love the difficulty. People who hate the obtuse design, people love that the game doesn't hold your hand and you get to like have that sense of discovery, and that the community has that sense of discovery together when a new game comes out. Like the people who love that. And the thing is, like, since there are so few experiences out there like that, these games, like when people say they need to change these things about these games, it sounds like you're telling the supporters, like, we want to take this away from you, and there's no other place you can get this experience. So I can get why, like, because me as a fan, I feel like that's what's going through my head when people are like, this targeting system is awful, it needs to change. I'm like, no, like, I like that the targeting system can be kind of punishing sometimes, because it makes me realize I have to like do it better next time, and I get excited then when I do it right. And so I do think that there's an aspect of that sort of, that defensiveness, I think, does come from a place that makes sense and isn't just like, we're fans, we're on team From Software, so you can't say anything bad about it. I don't think that's the intention behind that defensiveness at all. I just think that From Software fans have spent the last 10 years having to defend the things they like about this game from people who get irrationally entitled about wanting From Software to change them when there's no other alternative.
Want to offend a From Software fan or a Souls-like fan, just tell them you want an easy mode added to the game.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Set them off, like, it'll cause a massive chain of comments that is just toxic and awful.
Well, some of it's toxic and some of it's awful, but for the most part, most people are saying what exactly I'm saying, which is, you want an easy mode, you go play Horizon Forbidden West. There's hundreds of thousands of games out there that have easy modes, and the reason why people don't like easy modes is because it's the easy. It's like having that option there means that, like, the option's there, meaning you never have to actually overcome, because you always have the option of just dropping the difficulty down. And for some people, myself included, I'm going to take that option and then never grow. And so they're two different experiences. And I'm not saying one experience is better than the other. I'm just saying they're two different experiences. And by adding an easy mode, you're literally taking away an experience that you wouldn't have otherwise access to. And I say, as someone who likes both experiences, I do feel like that would be something that I would be missing if these games were to be patched with easy modes tomorrow, right? Is like, I like having to have like a few games out there where I have to then like figure it out and like actually figure out what I did wrong, as opposed to just being like, well, that sucked, so I'm going to switch to easy mode, right? Like,
that's what I do all the time.
I get it. I get why you do it, and I do it too. I did it with Forbidden West. I was like, this is taking too long. I'm going to actually, like, I had goals to accomplish, so I dropped it down to story mode, and I don't have a shame in doing that. But if I didn't have the option to do that, I would have like struggled and learned and figured out what I was doing wrong, and that would have been fun too, right? So that's what I'm saying. Is just like you don't get these you don't get these experiences anywhere else. Yes, there's a whole Souls-like genre, but like they're not always none of them are as good as the OGs, right? From Software does it really well, I think. So that's, I think, what people are like defending when they get overly defensive. And then I do think that, like, to say that like the detractors are the only logical and reasonable ones is also unfair, because the detractors can also be weirdly irrational in their hatred of these games. I
feel like the detractors are seeing something great, and they feel like they're not allowed to participate. Like they feel walled off. Like, I can't enjoy Bloodborne because it's too hard. You put an easy mode in it, suddenly that lore, that story, that vibe, that game is now approachable to me, and I get to enjoy it too. And so I get to be in the club. Whereas then the people that are in the club are like, well, no, it's hard for a reason. That's the fundamental reason for the game. So if you can't do it, then you shouldn't be here. And that's where the get good stuff happens.
No, totally. And I get that as well. But at the same time, like, there's plenty of games that I feel on the outside looking in on for one reason or another, right? Like Skyrim, I couldn't get into it. And so am I entitled to like be part of the club because I couldn't get into it because it had mechanics and stuff I don't like? No. Am I like, should they change the mechanics and the design of the game because I, the one player, who didn't get into it don't like it. No, absolutely. That would be an absurd statement for any other game for any other reason. But for some reason, for From Software games, it's like, you must change it so I can be in on the club. No, the game is what it is. If you don't like the difficulty, then you don't have to play it. No one's forcing you to play it. And if you don't know what's happening, if you want to be in on the club and want to know what's happening, you have to put up with the, what you don't like about it to see what you might like about it. And that's every choice everybody has to make with every game all the time. So I don't know. It's just weird to me that like these games generate so much ire for what they are. And that's why I think From Software fans have had to like fight to, and part of it too is like
discourse around it all is
just, it's insane. And I agree. I agree. But like, I feel like there are rational people on both sides and there are irrational people on both sides. And I feel like you and I have had really good discussions over the last years, and sometimes they've gotten heated, but overall we're like I get your point of view and I totally understand it. And you get my point of view and you totally understand it. And neither of us are wrong and neither of us are right. And we sort of accept that we each have different opinions. That said, I do feel like most of our conversations over the last year have been just arguing about these games. And so I'm looking forward to not talking about this game after this live stream for a few months until Game of the Year comes up, when it will inevitably come up again. But in the meantime, it certainly was like, I respect that we've always had a pretty good, healthy discourse with each other around these games. And I feel like that is also reflected in communities out there, but the loudest, most annoying voices are the ones that get heard the most. So on both sides. And so I kind of wanted to, I definitely wanted to talk about that. In my notes, I have little bits here saying that like, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't deserve praise, right? Like just because for your personal assessment, there was an 8 out of 10, it doesn't mean that you can't recognize why other people gave it 9s and 10s out of 10s, right? I think as a rational gamer who understands what people like and don't like about games, you can see why this game, hopefully you can see why this game was reviewed so highly.
It took a while. It took a very long time for me to understand. I just didn't get it.
Yeah, but like, again, I think you now know that you're like, oh yeah, like just because I don't like certain things doesn't mean they aren't good and that other people don't like them and that they don't deserve praise for those very things that I dislike, right? I'll use the Skyrim example. It's like I'll always say that Skyrim was a revolutionary and incredible step forward in gaming, while at the same time being like, but I didn't get into it. And that's okay. Like there should be games out there like that because it means there's more experiences out there for people who aren't me to enjoy. And so I think that's sort of a healthy mindset to have as well. And then on the other hand, the other example, like the other far end of that like notion is it's okay not to like the games, even if you're a From Software fan. I had a friend I was talking to who's a huge fan of these games, and he was like, "I'm having a hard time getting into Elden Ring," and I feel like I should. I feel like I have to because I'm a From Software fan, and I'm like, no, you don't. You're not. You're not obligated. You're not going to lose your membership to the club because you didn't like one of their games, right? Like, it's fine to not like the game, even if you're a fan of their other games. And it's fine to not like the game if you're not a fan of the game. Like, right? Like, that's fine. So, just because the game got a 97 and people love it and everyone's talking about it, it doesn't mean you have to, like, you're not less of a gamer for not liking it.
You're
so I feel like
obligated to like it too.
Exactly. And I feel like that needs to absolutely 100% be said multiple times over and over again till people get sick of hearing it.
I had to play The Witcher 3 to appreciate Skyrim, and I was hoping I'd have to play this game to appreciate the rest of some From Software games, and maybe I'll go back to another one, but my experience tonight is telling me that I don't want to do anything.
You're playing Bloodborne with me 100%. You're playing Bloodborne with me 100%.
I don't know if anyone's watching the stream. I assume that that's what they are because that's what I'm doing. But I've done nothing but get a dagger. That's it. This entire time. But I've died like 50 times. And I just now boosted myself with one of the runes, just enough arcane to use the dagger that I got, that arcane dagger that I love.
Yeah,
I've never used it. Yeah, that one. And it's useless, so it's whatever.
No, dude, L2. Use its L2 ability. It shoots out a little stream of blood. L2 does my shield.
What?
You have to equip something not shield in your hand. So either two-hand the dagger or dual-wield the dagger, and then use L2. It'll shoot out a stream of blood that will like boost their blood loss. And if you do that like 3 times in a row, they'll take a huge chunk of damage. It's awesome.
Folks,
It's an
I've
incredible little dagger.
played 60 hours of this game, and I still don't understand that whole thing you just explained. With like how the L2...
You freaking, that's because you started with a spellcaster. If you had started with a proper hybrid character, you might have known how some of these things would work and have more tools at your disposal.
Right,
this is part of the reason why I was excited about this stream, is hearing you struggle because you are playing a character that's entirely different than the one you started with. By its nature, it's awesome to me. But you might, yeah, I don't know you
for sure. T-Bone, he wants to see. He asked if we rune duped. Here, I'll show you inventory.
Oh yeah,
right here. This right here will get me to like level 100 and some right now if I used every one of these in my inventory. So
yeah, you can also duplicate items. Like I could hop onto his game and drop him like a bunch of gear that would make his build sing right now. But I'm not going to necessarily do that. I might.
I don't know if I have a.
If you want to, if that's fun for you, then I'll do it. But
so I have to have one-handed and hold L2. Oh yeah, there it is. Huh. All right, let me try it. See if I can do anything with this stupid game. There we go. I killed one enemy with it. Yeah, the range is what I want. That's what I'm talking about. Now I can actually do something.
Now I can play the game.
Instead of just getting cornered and wrecked.
Well, like I've told you, like I think you'll like Bloodborne because I think you'll like the fact that I've tested it. Like I can co-op 99% of that platinum with you. Yeah. I'm gonna hesitate saying for you, even though that's probably true to reality. I would probably be doing it for you. But I think Bloodborne is, if there's one From Software game that, knowing you and your predispositions, that you will get the most out of at this stage in things, it's Bloodborne. Like, and I get that your biggest hesitancy is literally a snobby graphics one of it's not 60 frames per second.
Because it could be. They patched Sekiro.
No, it should.
Right?
It should. Well, Sekiro came out third party. Sekiro was third party, so it didn't have, being a game that was designed to be run on PC, it was 60 frames, like uncapped in the first place.
And so if you're playing it on PC, Dark Souls 3, because they patched that to unlock
Dark
the frame rate too.
Dark Souls 1 remaster. Dark Souls 1 remaster is unlocked 60 frames. It's weird. And Dark Souls 1
Bloodborne is a first party PlayStation.
It's the Sony one, and for whatever reason, From Software locked it to 30 frames per second, and all they have to do is remove that. Yeah, but it's even at 30 frames per second. It's incredible. It's such a good game. So you are going to be playing that with me. You're going to return to Yharnam with me in October. Now that you've played Elden Ring and you have a taste for it, and I promise you, there's nothing as hard as Melania that you and I couldn't do together in Bloodborne. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
You want to switch to my stream? I'm about to fight a boss.
Sure. Yeah, go for it. Because this is no longer fun. So I am done.
All right, we can finish out with me fighting a boss.
Yeah.
Anyone in the chat want to talk about anything fun? T-Bone is just lighting us up with information. Ever thought about reaching the level cap? I've never reached any of the level caps in any of the games. It's way too much grinding, and I don't intend to do it. I feel like maxing out all stats, like, to me, removes the fun out of building a character, right, with limitations. So I like sort of the self-imposed limitations. Oh, I hate these things. I hate them. Don't do it. I'm gonna die. Oh, okay, I need a second to breathe, tree spirit.
That's why I don't like them. Oh, I miss my mimic tier. Starting a new game was not fun with a samurai. That wasn't cool at all. I also didn't look anything up.
Mislead you or whatever.
No, it was fine. I needed to look stuff up, and I wanted to do that on stream because that's boring. But like, find a good katana, find some good armor, and like look things up, and like go to those places and get the things to make you strong. And I did manage to beat that one little boss to get the dagger, which was fine. Finally. But yeah, these tree spirits are all stupid.
Well, once you realize they're mostly just huster and bluster, there are a lot of like flashy, big looking scary moves that go real fast and across the map. But once you realize that for the most part, it's just about like dodging correctly, then they're not that bad. Let's see your breath attack. I'll show you mine. He's dead.
Dragonfire.
Gotcha.
Look at that. You do stuff. I just died a lot. You have to go back and watch me play because I did nothing for like that whole hour I was playing.
That's funny.
But die over and over and over again.
Yeah, everyone knew
accomplished
that it was going to be
0.
more fun to watch me.
Yeah, you actually.
Oh
know
yeah,
what you're
dude,
doing.
T-Bone. Even with duping, well, I don't know about getting the level cap, but even with duping, like duping is
Still takes a while.
duping is great. Duping softens some of the edges, but it doesn't completely trivialize. Like over leveling is super helpful in these games, and also it's not going to just make things a cakewalk. So like that's something.
I mean,
to
I was
be
over leveled
aware
for
of.
Millennia when I spent 7 hours. I was
Yeah.
way over leveled, and
Yeah.
it didn't help.
I mean, for anybody who's on the fence, this is my other kind of quote controversial statement or whatever. For anybody who's on the fence, my recommendation would be this: if you've never played these games, if you've never tried them, try it. That might mean borrowing it in a few months from a friend who's bored of it. That might mean getting it on sale in a year, or if it ever comes to Xbox Game Pass or PS Plus, try it. I was in the same boat as Termite over a year ago. I did not want to play these games. I did not want to try them because I thought they would be exactly what Termite described. Frustrating, obtuse, like time sinks. And they sometimes are.
Yep.
But I tried Bloodborne and I was hooked. T-Bone was there the night I live streamed it and saw me like struggle through it for that first like hour I played it. But something about it just made me want to keep playing it. And then I talked to a buddy of mine who gave me some advice, and those tips turned me around. Those tips completely altered my perception of what the game was and supposed to be. And then the next time you saw me stream that game, I was like most of the way through it and fighting demons the size of a tanker truck and not breaking a sweat. So like again, Termite represents one end of the spectrum of like, I tried it, I didn't like it. But I represent an end of the spectrum that was, I tried it and I fell in love with the entire thing and like did the backlog over the last year, the whole backlog. And every time I picked up a game, I was super excited and into it and having fun. Like even like Dark Souls 2, I was like, oh, this is so nice to be back in these games when I played it. And I didn't finish or platinum Dark Souls 2 yet. I have my own gripes about Dark Souls 2 specifically. But like every single one of them, I played them and I platinumed them. So like, you don't know until you try, and don't rely on the reputation of these games to like determine your opinions on them, because the reputation is going to be all over the place based on people's different experiences. And Termite can attest and can agree to the fact that the difficulty on these games, the reputation, is vastly overblown. Are they hard? Yes. Are they obtuse? Yes. Are they undoable without mere complete perfection? No. Even that difficult boss that Termite had trouble with, we were able to find a strategy to basically trivialize her mechanics and get through them, right? Like we did it. They nerfed that strategy, of course, a few weeks later, but like but like but there's a new one. There's new ones. There's already a new meta for beating Millennia. With like, okay, get this, you're good. Like
we have
so they're not
question.
Yeah, what's up?
Chat. Flanker Pilot. So is it safe to say that there's no difference between main quests and side quests here?
There is. I guess I don't quite understand the question. Like the side quests are optional and they're rewarding in different ways. Usually they unlock like cooler weapons and stuff, whereas the main quest will advance the story and unlock like more like character boosting stuff. So, but like as far as the feeling goes of completing quests, some of the main quests are hard to figure out exactly what you're supposed to do, and you usually end up looking up a guide online for those as well. So like, yeah, there's no difference in regards to the game gives you slightly more guidance towards the main quests, but like the side quests can be completely missable just because you're not paying attention to what you're supposed to do. And there's no trackers. There's no like, here's your quest log. Nope. You just kind of have to remember which NPCs you talk to and then find them later or look it up online. There's no shame in looking things up. There's no shame in doing any shortcut in these games. Cheese strategies.
Nope.
You're there. Like I'm here for it. Co-op. I'm here for it. Looking things up online to get the exact most optimum route to what you want to do or your build. Do it. Looking up information. I need to find this. I need to do this. Do it. Like any tool that's available to you, even exploits, do them, because who cares? Like, at that point, who cares? It's fun. It's meant to be fun. It's a game. And if the game has things built in it to make it easier, so-called easy modes, do them. Because who cares? No one cares. You don't have to please anybody but yourself when you're playing these games. So, like,
It's true.
screw what the online Discord says. Because, like, you have the other end of the spectrum. You got people who are already running this game, doing speed runs naked with their fists, and, like, doing the hardest possible version of the game. People are already doing those challenge modes and succeeding, and that's fun for them. So do what's fun for you. Like, and these games are worth... I mean, I cheesed my way through Bloodborne the first time. Like, so, yeah, Bloodborne is 100%, like, a game you can cheese the entire way through. So do it. Who cares? Why not?
That's right.
Because if it's fun for you, and if it's fun to get that platinum on a 7 out of 10 difficulty game, and you get to look at yourself and be like, oh, it wasn't 7 out of 10 difficulty because I cheesed it. Good for you. If you get satisfaction out of that, do it. Like, do whatever it takes to get enjoyment out of these games. And the way I get enjoyment out of the game might not be the same as the way you get enjoyment out of the game. And that's fine. So
T-Bone brings up a good point about, I look things up all the time. It just saves so much time running around lost. You talk about like rune duping. When people hear you, oh, you duplicated runes, you didn't grind. I was like, well, I could do an auto key hack script using remote play to like run through this level while I'm sleeping and collect runes. I could do that.
It's the same end result.
Same end result, or
it's
I
the
could
same
sit
end
for
result.
80 hours on my couch listening to podcasts doing that manually.
Like, why over level at all?
Me a better right?
Sure. Why over level at all? Like, why not just like, why not do the PvP meta, only level to 125 and beat the game at 125? Because that's what true hardcore players do. No, kidding. True hardcore players beat the game on level 1 naked with nothing but their fists.
Right, with a Guitar Hero's controller.
With a Guitar Hero's controller. Or true hardcore people play the game without electricity. Or true hardcore people don't even play the game at all and just they beat it in their minds while sleeping with... You know what I mean? Like, you could up that ante to the nth extreme. And there's always going to be someone who does it, quote, better than you. In my mind, those people are wasting their time, whether they could be spent playing better, or not better necessarily, but other games. So, like, who cares? Play the game how you want to play it. That's my thing. There are, the easy mode discussion is not a discussion because there are easy modes that the game provides you without dropping.
I still really love an easy mode. I'm just saying.
Without dropping the like damage and health of the enemies, the game provides you with plenty of easy modes. So, like, the Mimic Tear is the game's easy mode. My time with
it is. My time with as a mage was infinitely easier than anything I did tonight because that was brutal. Mm-hmm. It's so much more. I guess it's a patience thing too with me because being a melee fighter, you have to be more patient, dodging, hitting, dodging when you're opening windows to attack.
See, my coworker Shane, who played almost the same exact class you did, the astrologer, the mage build, he insists that that melee is this game's easy mode.
Oh no!
Yeah,
it's quite the opposite.
I think it's all about.
I don't have to I can just pelt enemies from a distance with spells over and over again, and they're dead before they even touch me. I can run out of a room full of enemies that would normally have like ambushed me or like using melee on me. I can just run away from them and like kite them into a location where I can pelt them with spells until they're dead without touching me. And to me, that is more fun than like the minutia of blocking, parrying, dodging.
But you don't really have to do that in melee comp. Like, I mean, if you're still watching my screen, like I'll go get in a melee fight right now and just like this giant. Okay, so you would have like been running around this guy on your horse blasting with spells, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I'm gonna do as a melee fighter. I'm just gonna roll in here. Cool. I've already taken away like a tenth of his health, and he ran away from me. So I'm going to position myself here. Oh, he got me. It's not the end of the world. I can handle that.
And heal.
I'm gonna roll in. Look, I knew that attack was coming. Oh, ouch. Okay, all right, fine. That wasn't a good example. That wasn't trying. I picked the nearest enemy around me, so all right, fine. That wasn't a great example, but you could have just as easily died to stupid things like that in a range fight.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? Like there was just as many mistakes that you could have made, or anyone. I don't mean you. I just mean that anyone could have made in that range fight. So I mean, I don't really find that melee is as prohibitive as you seem to think. Like, I feel like enemies have ways of dealing with range characters, and enemies have ways of dealing with melee characters. And some enemies are like their ways of dealing with range characters are like absurdly ridiculous. And the best way to deal with them is to go whack them with a stick in the face a couple times, and they don't know how to handle that. Some enemies have an easier time dealing with melee characters. They have stomps and spells and shields and stuff that just blast you away as soon as you get close to them. And so pelting them from a range is like the way to go. And then some enemies are great at dealing with both. And like that's why I kind of enjoy hybrid characters, and I hate restricting myself to just range or melee, because
you need both.
I love having both available to me, because you sometimes need both. And so yeah, anyway, so I definitely think that there's not necessarily an advantage or disadvantage. But again, play the game how you want to play it. Find the most optimal way of doing it and do it that way.
And have fun.
And have fun.
It was
because
great.
That's what the games should be. That's what all games should be. And the discourse around these games and idiot get good people who are just being gatekeeper elitists are in the wrong. Yeah, go home. If someone has fun cheesing their way through this game, or like using spirits or whatever, then like they'll have fun, because like put yourself in their shoes. I suppose there's always someone who could say the way you're playing is not the best way, and that you're a scrub who doesn't know how to get good because you didn't do it naked with your fists or whatever, right? Or you didn't speed run it in 30 minutes. Like, which by the way is the current record around about 30 minutes people have beat the game. It's ridiculous.
That means we could have beat Elden Ring 4 times in this stream.
Exactly. And so like, yeah, like that's unnecessary. Is like these games are meant, like, there's always going to be someone who's better than you, so like, and that person could always be elitist towards you, so ignore it. It's not necessary. Play the game how you want to play it. They put spirits in the game for a reason, so enjoy having fun and ignore what idiots say, who for whatever reason need to feel better about themselves by putting other people down and taking away other people, robbing other people of their enjoyment of these games. Those are the worst versions of people in the Souls-like community, and the community calls them out constantly. I saw Elden Ring memes for days that were basically people being like, oh, you should play the game without electricity if you really want to get good. And it was all tongue-in-cheek, making fun of idiots who make the community a worse place to be. So it's good. The community is doing better about policing those idiots out of the community itself, but there's still a long way to go. I would say don't completely hate these games based solely on the virtue of the way that the absolute worst members. Because if I wanted to judge Call of Duty or Fortnite for its absolute worst community, I probably do. It's probably true.
You do. Yeah.
But I absolutely could. And I try not to. I understand why people love Call of Duty and why it makes millions of dollars every year. The game's got a good thing going for it. And there are a lot of idiots who play those games, and there are a lot of people who I love who play those games and love those games, and I know they're not idiots. So, like, yeah, it's not fair to necessarily judge a game by its absolute worst community members. But anyways, that's my treatise. I guess that's our time. I mean, we're 2 minutes over right now. We said we could go over. I'm happy to keep. I'm going to be playing anyways after this, so like, it's not really much of a difference if I'm playing while talking to people. But if you want to wrap up, I saw you yawning a bit there, so I'm happy to wrap up our first new stream format. And wrap up this incredible. I love it or hate it. You can't deny this game is like going to be talked about for years. Like, it's going to dominate the conversation for years. Like, no matter what, people are going to be saying these two words, Elden Ring, for a very long time. For a very long time.
Until Elden Ring 2 comes out.
I don't know, man. From Software doesn't like to revisit. They only made Dark Souls 3 times because they got pressure from Bandai Namco to make a sequel. So Miyazaki tasked a whole separate team to make Dark Souls 2. And I don't want to say that Dark Souls 2 was a screw up, because it's a well-designed game in its own right. But it's definitely the redheaded stepchild of the Dark Souls franchise. And you got wow, you're just getting the whole lineup, aren't you? Dark Souls 2, actually, that's the easy one. That version, the non-Scholar of the Sin version, they have there's a hex build that was nerfed in the PS4 remaster. That you could probably get the platinum on that game actually super easily with a broken build.
Sweet.
Anyways, all that's just to say that I don't even remember. Oh, so Dark Souls 2 happened, and it was considered enough of a screw up that Miyazaki felt like he needed to make Dark Souls 3 to close out the trilogy in a good way. So Dark Souls was never intended to be a trilogy and ended up having to become a trilogy because of publisher pressure. The fact that they have no interest in making Bloodborne 2 and revisiting Bloodborne, even though there's such a massive fan outcry for it, goes to show how much they hate. I don't think we're ever going to see a Sekiro 2. And
Probably
I would be... This game was a massive success, so we might see an Elden Ring 2. But I think that From Software wants to move on to the next thing, personally. So I'm about to fight a dragon, though. Real quick. Before we go, let's end on a awesome note of me fighting a dragon, because I just realized where I was in the world. So let's do this.
I died by a dragon very quickly that I didn't know was coming. It stepped on me and died.
Well, I know this dragon's coming, and I'm going to fight it for the sake of our viewers who want to see something awesome. I'm going to summon Mimic, though, ahead of time.
Sweet. While you're fighting a dragon, I'm going to say the fact that this is new is extremely important, and the best thing we can do with anything new is make it better. How can we do that? Your feedback. So please, please reach out. Let us know what you thought of our very first review live stream. Does this format work? Is it neat to see each of us playing a thing? Would you rather us do co-op? Do we talk too much? Did we even make a coherent review on each end? Do you want more of it? Let us know. Give me all of your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, and ideas over at 80bitpodsmash.com, where there are links to all of our social media outlets with which you can reach us, including a Discord server where we can have live chats and keep this conversation going the entire time. So
and share it with your friends. Share if you liked it and think it's worth watching and discussing with us. We want to be here with all of your friends talking about these things and hearing your banter and your chat and the fun things you have to say with your friends. So get people in on the fun, because we have fun talking. We have more fun when we're engaging with people, and we have more fun with people who already have friendships and stuff.
Yeah, so we can build our community more. And your stream is hiccuping and freezing regularly.
What?
So this fight has been anticlimactic. Yeah, it's stopping again. Your face is fine, so it's not your. I think it might be Video Ninja, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I'm doing more action too. There's more visual things, so maybe it's the fact that it's just trying to keep up with a lot of stuff. I mean, it looks fine on OBS end, which I can kind of see in the background here, but I have no idea what it looks like on the Video Ninja that we're using. That's unfortunate. We can always refine things technologically, so tell us if things aren't working, and we'll try to make it better next time.
Maybe they don't even... What's the Discord link? Links on this page aren't working. What? The links on my Twitch TV page aren't working? This is a travesty. Hold on. Let me take a look. Links here. Let's see. That's... I'm doing it live. Where is the homepage of... That's mine. I don't want Termite 04. I want 80-bit Pod Smash. There we go. Let's see. Links here.
Oh, I shot him out of the sky! I mean, if it was not hiccuping and freezing the whole time, then that was a pretty cool way to end the stream. Just throwing that out there. So
the link on the Twitch page worked. It took me to my Discord. It's saying we beamed the info to your Discord app. If you close this browser tab or continue with the web version, you can continue there. And it asks you to log in. Welcome back. I am human. Oh, then I have to authenticate.
Oh, yeah.
The link is 80bitpodsmash.com. Should have a link tree. And there's a link and the link tree as well. So click 80bitpodsmash.com and then go to the link tree. That brings you to a green page. There's a Discord link there. It does the exact same thing. So there's a different path to get there if you would like. We would love to have you in our Discord.
Absolutely.
And if you still can't
thanks
figure
for
it out
coming
after
and
this,
joining.
then you can send us an email, 80bitpodsmash@gmail.com. You can also find us Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and we have a subreddit. So please continue to try if it doesn't work. However, struggling, troubleshooting.
We'll make it easy for you as much as we can, right? Like we don't want to be like From Software. We don't want to be obtuse. We want to try to make it easy for you. So we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out for you if we can. So,
With that, we will end the stream. Thank you all for joining us on our very first Elden Ring review.
It was
Let
fun.
us know
I had a good time.
what you think. Yeah, it was good times. Till the next month on Twitch, but we have an episode of our podcast launching on Monday, the 28th. That is all about what?
I did just eat a dragon heart for the record, but Monday the 28th, the episode I'm editing now will be about morally gray video game developers. So whenever, when bad people make good games is the way I put it, or when bad people make bad games, but most importantly, when you have the moral dilemma of having to choose between a developer you find repugnant and a game that you find awesome. What do? We kind of break it down and discuss it. It should be a really good one. And then after that is just a regular episode, just about normal stuff. So that'll be fun. The one after that happens to be near the beginning of April, where nothing exciting happens at all or interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Some people might be picking up what I'm putting down. Other people might be going over their heads. That's fine. So
episodes launching who knows when.
Yeah. Mondays is when episodes usually they launch. They launch Mondays, pretty much consistently for the past several years.
No, 5 years now.
No changes, no differences. It should be fine, right? A normal episode.
Yep.
A normal episode. Near the beginning of April.
Be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So next Monday, bad people, and then the following Monday, you'll see.
Alrighty. With that, we will see you next week.
It was a blast. I had fun. Bye.